Hello, everyone. We're just going to get started in a few minutes. All right. Well, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Laura Gruninger, and I'm the Director of Media Relations with the Gluten Free Media Group, and I'll be your moderator today. As always, we want to include your voice in today's conversation, so please ask questions, share comments using the question box on your GoToWebinar panel, and at the end we will go through those questions. So while we wait for everyone to join, if you want to, take a second and type where you're calling in from today, and we'll make sure that question box is working. Alrighty, now on to today's topic. This is the third webinar we've hosted with Samir. The first two were focused on social media, specifically Facebook, but we're switching gears today to talk about email marketing as a crucial form of communication to your consumers. And with that, I'm honored to welcome back Samir Shah, and I will turn the microphone over to him.
Hi, Laura. Hi, everybody. Thanks for that warm introduction. So as Laura mentioned, today we're going to delve into email marketing and talk a little bit about strategies, content, scheduling, and most importantly, why email marketing is beneficial. So before we jump into the agenda, I'd like to just tell you a little bit about me for those of you that haven't been on the past calls. I started my firm, Kana Marketing, in June, relatively new. The primary focus is on food clients. Kana actually means food, but I do have clients that are outside of the food industry, but usually they tend to be organizations or companies that have a founder and a mission, something that they're doing that's kind of unique or different, and they tend to be growing brands. So they need help with marketing, but they may not be at the stage where they're ready to make significant investments, such as people and resources. So that's kind of where I come in. I like to say that you get 20 years of experience with me for the cost of 3. The work that I do takes on many different forms: branding, messaging, a fair amount of social media, driving e-commerce. The client base today has a couple of food clients and a couple of others that are outside of that space. As I've been growing, it's not just me now. I have Cam Wilson, who's working with me. Cam does a fair bit of marketing and also works on sales and business development. He's worked in an ad agency and earned an MBA at Babson, which has a significant food presence, and I think they do some kind of food day conference there. A little unique thing, both of us served in the Marine Corps at some point in our lives. He was an officer and served pretty recently, and I served a long time ago and was enlisted. But what's cool is that Cam did PR in the Marine Corps, actually, and at one point was stationed at Guantanamo Bay and would brief some of the generals before they would go out and talk to the press. So he's got a pretty unique background in addition to all the ad agency and other things, and together we make a good team. So let's jump into today's content. So a question that I get asked a fair bit, and a question that I've even asked myself, is email relevant anymore? Isn't social media the big thing? Everybody's staring at Facebook all day long. Why is email still, or is email still important? And the answer is that it is. As you can see the stats, there are almost double the number of people that are using email than are using Facebook. Facebook tends to be something that you check periodically. At least a lot of people don't have it open at work. Email is something that you're in all day long and working in. marketers still report that the ROI on email is still much higher. So you can drive more bang for the buck with regards to sales than you can with Facebook and social media. That may change over time, and I think that's in flux, and it's going to vary by the company and how you're doing it, but I still think that email provides a pretty compelling case for ROI. The downside of email, of course, is that you don't have that ability to target the exact profile of user. So if you're looking for gluten-free moms with a family income over $100,000 in the Las Vegas area, it's much harder with email to segment down to that level, whereas in Facebook with a couple of clicks, you can do that. But I think the key point here is that it's not an either-or by any means. It's certainly using both. If you have a comprehensive digital marketing strategy, then you absolutely want to be doing both social media and then using email to reinforce it. And also, email's got some different features and the way that it looks and feels compared to social media. So there's opportunities to message things differently. The real estate that you're given in Facebook advertising is very, very small. So that makes it harder to communicate the brand's message. So, and then of course you're going to have people that are not on Facebook or just don't check it very often or have turned off and blocked a lot of the ads, in which case your messages aren't going to get through. So if you want to reach the whole universe of your potential customer base, then I recommend doing both. So with any marketing strategy, including email, the first question is, what are we hoping to accomplish? And email can help you achieve all of these goals. You probably receive emails from various brands or companies that you've interacted with in the past, and they may be sending you messages that are offering a coupon or a deal or a discount. We just had Black Friday. There were a ton of Black Friday emails and discounts that went out. And then, of course, your general awareness and letting customers know what your brand is doing, or even introducing it to them for the first time. You can use email to gain new customers. It's a little bit harder to do, and we'll get into the nuances of why that is the case, but it definitely can be a little bit difficult to gain brand new customers due to some of the limitations, and we'll talk about that. And then, of course, you have your announcements, your brand, just your general brand building, staying in touch with customers, prodding them to do certain things. I've noticed that brands that send me a fair amount of email, I tend to remember more. So they just stay in your mind a little bit more than the brands that are less communicative. So, and a lot of those emails that you get, you may not even open, but just seeing the subject line and seeing who it's from accomplishes that goal of telling you that, hey, we're out there, we're still here, please come interact with us. So this slide kind of lays out, I know there's a lot of words here, so I'm going to try to talk through it and break it down, but this kind of just lays out how you want to go about setting up and organizing your thoughts around what your email strategy should be. And this could be at the very start of your email. Let's say you haven't done any emailing yet, or it could also be something that you do along the way as you're kind of tweaking and constantly updating. The first thing is really just going back to that other slide, which is what are your goals and objectives? Those goals and objectives don't have to be simply one of that list. You can have a comprehensive email strategy that covers all of it, much in the same way that you may do events and you may do different things on social media to accomplish different tasks at different times. Email is also fairly versatile and gives you the opportunity to accomplish a wide variety of things. And typically, especially this time of the year, what we're seeing are just a lot of discount emails. You probably get them as I do. Just, hey, 50% off here, 30% off for the next 3 days, that sort of thing. But there are also going to be quite a few holiday message emails coming out, and that's just general customer goodwill, building a relationship, saying hello, that sort of thing. A lot of companies around this time of year also do charitable giving or have other activities going on that are not core to the product, but still an essential part of the brand. Especially in our space, the small growing food brands a lot of times have social responsibility on their agenda, and so that's an important piece to consider as you're mapping out what you want to do. And then, of course, at the bottom here, we talk about some very specific customer outreach. This typically is in the context of e-commerce, which we'll talk about a little bit separately as a part of email. But you definitely want to have, if you do e-commerce to any degree, you want to make sure that you have those automated emails set up so that after the first order, they get a thank you. If they haven't purchased in a while, they get a, just kind of, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while. If they have an abandoned cart, then with some of the major e-commerce packages, you can set up automated emails to go out at a time that you set, maybe a day or 2 days later, just saying, hey, you put items in your cart, you didn't check out. Here's a friendly reminder to go ahead and place the order. What that will help you do, it's not going to work every time, but it'll increase your close rate on the e-commerce side of things. Now, as we have discussed in the last 2 sessions, it bears mentioning again, any type of these digital programs to drive sales are generally focused on e-commerce, and if you have a frozen product, then it's going to be more difficult to do. That being said, you can use email to drive behavior at the retail store by offering coupons or other types of discounts. And you can also simply by providing awareness that, hey, we just got into the store, or did you know we're in these stores in your area, that kind of thing. So you're not out of the game if you have a frozen product, but it is going to be a little bit more difficult to achieve a similar ROI if your product is frozen and doesn't ship as easily. So once you've figured out your goals and objectives, you want to start thinking about your audience, who you're talking to, what their persona is. If you have a big enough email list and you can segment it, then you want to. So you may have one profile of busy professionals that may be single and that need, quick meal or snack options. Then you may have a different persona of moms and families that are looking for dinner solutions. If you can segment your list that way, great. A lot of times it's hard to, because we don't get the same information with email that we do with other means, but if you can segment, you definitely should. And in some ways, you can segment without kind of realizing it. So if you go to a specific conference or trade show that has a specific group of people, so let's say if it's a GFAF show, you know that pretty much everybody there is going to be gluten-free. And there may be a significant chunk that have celiac disease. So you can kind of segment just by where you obtain those lists. Then you want to make sure that your voice is in line with your brand, and that's something I always talk about across the board in every area. Any communication you do should be in your brand's voice. Your brand's voice can change for different scenarios and situations. So if you're announcing some really positive event like a new product launch, the voice may be different than if you're announcing a problem like a shortage. But generally speaking, your voice should stay fairly consistent with your brand, and it's just speaking that way and knowing whether you're going to be serious, lighthearted, are you really edgy, and you use really almost borderline risque humor. I know someone that's a blogger that does that, and it's really funny, but it's definitely going to be something that could turn off some people that may not find that funny. So just think through that and be aware of it. Emotion, humor, imagery. We'll talk about imagery at length. It's a very important part of email, but just remember, it's an email that people are going to scan very quickly. They're probably getting more of them than they want to, so you want to make sure you stand out and connect with them in a way that really resonates. Next thing is to plan out your calendar. So just like you would for social media or for anything else, you want to have a calendar. And ideally, the calendar is comprehensive and covers social media, email, and all of it together. So you kind of know what's going on in advance for the next month relative to what types of things you're going to be promoting. You can also do things like map to your TPR schedule. So if you're going to be on discount at Kroger, You want to make sure maybe you get an email blast out when it starts, maybe in the middle, maybe towards the end, so you can make the most of that. And then don't forget the seasonal calendar. Easy to remember right now because of the holidays, but if you're thinking about fun things to do, there's a little trick I realized recently. You can go on Google and download kind of this comprehensive holiday calendar, but some of these holidays are almost kind of nonsensical, like there's clean out your refrigerator day. There's all these kinds of days for different things. That can be fun content potentially to consider. With regards to the cadence, you know your customers the best. So if you think that once a week is a good cadence, then go for it. Typically, I would say once every other week is kind of where my comfort level has been, unless there's something really big going on and it makes sense to do that, or if you've got an event coming up that's very tight timeline. So let's say the next GFAF show, you want to make sure that all of your potential customers in that market know about it, then maybe you're doing some emails 2 or 3 in that week leading up. But generally speaking, if they're general emails, I try to go with once every other week. Again, nothing set in stone. Go with what you think makes sense. And most importantly, kind of moving to this last box here, think about all of this stuff that goes on for the first 3 boxes is great, but none of it's real until you actually try it out and test it and measure it. So run a campaign, run an email or 2 and see how the click rate looks. And if it looks good, keep going. If it doesn't look good, try something different. Try something different anyway, just to have a comparison. All of these things are iterative, and you will never figure out all the right answers just brainstorming in your office. So let's talk a little bit about the best practices. And again, I know there are a lot of words here, so I'll try to make this kind of break this down a little bit. But imagery and pictures, absolute must. They have to be compelling. If you want to show pictures of your product, make sure it looks really good. If you have the ability to have professional photography or food styling, take advantage of it. I've seen some great things. My restaurant client takes some phenomenal pictures of their fresh pizza when it comes out of the oven with, I think, just an iPhone camera. So you can do it, just make sure that you put the time and energy into doing that. It doesn't always have to be product imagery either. There can be images like graphics or cartoon type images, whatever works, and we'll look at a few examples in a minute and we'll see each of those. Video is also really, really popular right now, and it's a great way to communicate. So you can, with some email programs, you can embed video. Some it's going to click you out to YouTube or somewhere else. Just be aware that when you have a click out type, now they're leaving your email and they're going to YouTube, and the likelihood of them coming back to you to click on the offer, it goes down. It's a funnel, and you're going to lose people to YouTube. They're going to see the most recent video that looks funny and click on that, and now they're able to remember how they got there. Next bullet here, these days not really that difficult, but it bears mentioning. You have to assume that the email will be read on a phone or a tablet. So whichever program you're using needs to make sure that the email is responsive and will show just as well on a phone as it will on a desktop. And this is the reason why a lot of the emails have gotten skinny and long, because they are optimized for mobile. Now, one message per email. There are newsletters, there's other exceptions to this, but as we look at examples, I'll show you that generally speaking, you want to have kind of one call to action, one thing that you're trying to communicate in that message, and that's how you're going to get a very simple, clean email that people will react to. If it's jumbled, if there are too many messages, if it doesn't make sense, there's a food store in Austin that could really use some help with their email marketing, and a lot of times they send out emails that almost don't make sense. It's a promotion, but it doesn't tie to the holiday that is coming up, and it just doesn't, it's kind of all over the map. So those types of things are just going to get junked and aren't worth the time. A great subject line, very important. We'll see that here in a second with examples, but very, very important. Then the first few words being very important. Again, that's just that whole attention grabbing, making sure that when someone opens your email that they read it, very quickly and find it interesting. So make sure that in addition to the subject line, your first few words catch their attention. Now, this piece about relevant information, this kind of goes back to targeting an audience, but make sure that the people you're talking to care about what you're telling them, or you have a reasonably good reason to believe that they will. So, obviously we wouldn't promote a gluten-free product to the National Bread Association. Maybe that's a little bit too simple of an example, but you kind of get the idea. So if you're targeting kind of that younger professional group for dinners on the go or quick dinners during the week, they're not going to respond as well to information that pertains more to families and feeding young kids. Like I said, with email, it's hard sometimes to know those differences, but other times you can find ways to put notations and kind of organize the emails that you have into buckets. And the good news is that the email programs, generally speaking, make that very easy. Segment audiences and messages, kind of what we've been talking about. And then this other point here, e-commerce, automated emails, like I said before, not to beat a dead horse, but they're just very important. You're leaving money on the table with e-commerce if you're not doing those. They're going to help close a greater percentage of sales than you would without them, and it creates a very good customer experience. I've also seen things like a brand will have the founder send almost like a handwritten note that they've taken a picture of or that they've found a nice way to put into a graphic. And that message will be something that goes out, let's say, after the first month or after the customer makes 3 purchases or whatever the case may be. I think that that is really a powerful way to humanize the brand and build a connection with the customer. And the last piece here, less is more. That absolutely goes without saying. The cleaner, the simpler, the better that the email will be received. All right, just one moment here. I'm going to pause this share and flip over to some emails that I have. Okay, hopefully we can see my screen again. Laura, let me know if you can't. This is a brand called Cauliflower. I've done a little bit of work with them in the past. They are a producer of cauliflower crust pizza, apparently very, very good. And I think they have a really good email marketing campaign. Their marketing in general, I think, is quite good. I can't take credit for it, but I think it's great. So in this particular case, very catchy subject line here. On the first day of pizza, cauliflower gave to me. It's not necessarily completely uniquely original, but it's not something you would think about in reference to a cauliflower pizza. The 12 days of pizza, and they've got some holiday pizza ideas here. And it's short, it's simple. They want you to click here, or they want you to click here for a coupon. So that's pretty handy. Now, also with most of these email programs, you can make all of your images links. So even if someone accidentally clicks here, they're going to wind up in the middle of your e-commerce experience, which is a good thing. Same thing goes for the logo. So this is good. And if you notice, there's these pizza ideas, and then there is a coupon. And the coupon is a little bit understated relative to the ideas. That's good because it's not overly commercial and it's building a relationship. There are going to be other times when it's all about just selling product, and that's okay. And then, let's see, let's look at another one of theirs real quick. The Meryl Streep of pizza, once again, pretty catchy. It makes you wonder what that means. And it turns out that they got an award in Progressive Grocer, so they're touting that. Now, one criticism of this email is that I love all this, the award season, the Meryl Streep, all of it makes perfect sense. But then you go here and there's another article where they're mentioned in Self. It's good, but it's a little bit, to me, almost kind of, does it completely fit, does it not? Not bad by any means, just some people might think it's great and it fits right in. For me, it's a little bit slightly off the mark. I would have considered just leaving this section off maybe and promoting this a different way, this piece of news. And then you can see that they've got images of their product packaging here at the bottom. That's also a good thing to do, because the more people see your package, the more it stays in their mind and the more likely they will be to find it at the store. And then, of course, this is very simple to do with these email programs, but you want to have links to your social media. Now I'm going to switch over to one which isn't in the food space, but it's Dollar Shave Club. And in general, Dollar Shave Club has great content marketing. It's a little bit edgy. It is definitely male-centric. It's not, their brand is very heavily skewed towards males. This company has a really unique story. It was started by one guy, and he had a really funny video promoting the company in the beginning, grew from nothing, and then was recently, I think 2 years ago or 18 months ago, acquired by Unilever for $1 billion. And this is an example of where the big company did a pretty good job of not screwing up the little company. So their personality and voice still feels exactly the same as it did when they were a small company. So I had been a customer. I stopped becoming a customer. So they sent me this email that says, have you been seeing someone else? Let's get back together. We took a little break. You saw some other people. We saw some other people. It's behind us. It's funny, I think. It's not something you're going to laugh out loud, but it's cute. It kind of gives you a chuckle. Very simple image, not a lot of text. Quick action to restart my account here and also here. So this is an example in my mind of a great email. Now let's look at a big company's email. This is Adidas. I think this just came in today. Not even sure why I get these emails, but I must have wound up on a list somehow. One image, one message, very simple. I think that's great. I'm not really sure what Adidas Boost is, but they clearly want me to go there. Oh, I see. It's their most advanced cushioning technology ever. Now, this email was not made by a program that the average small brand would have access to. This is probably custom HTML. That's not to say that you can't have a developer create custom HTML for you very easily, and relatively inexpensively, but they've got the ability to embed more links and kind of do this a little bit more flexibly than the template-driven model that comes with some of the programs that we interact with. And then the last example I'll show you is a nutritionist based here in Austin. She has really good content, in my opinion. She's had a lot of interesting emails. Some of them are edgy, some of them are more straightforward. This one talks about why you shouldn't eat vegetables on Thanksgiving. Kind of a strange thing to hear from a nutritionist, but I think what she's saying is a lot of your green bean casserole is going to have a ton of cream and whatever else in it. So it may be a vegetable, but it's not really a vegetable at that point. It's a little bit edgy. She talks about giving the holiday bulge a big F off. She's had some other things that are kind of almost borderline risque, but they're funny and they work. And she knows that most of her customer base is going to find that funny and go for it, so it's not a risk. This just all comes back to knowing your customers. If they're fairly conservative, keep it more straightforward. If you think you can pull off some humor and do it well, humor is difficult. It's hard to be funny, but if you can and you've got the creative capability, nothing works better, in my opinion. All right, let's go back here, and I want to shift topic to a little bit of regulations around email. There is one major law, and it's kind of funny because if you read the name outside, completely spelled out, controlling the assault of non-solicited pornography and marketing makes it sound like they're going to do something that holds back emailing. But then when it's an acronym, it's CAN spam, and that's really that's a better description, in my opinion, than the other one, because it actually does set the ground rules to allow you to be able to send unsolicited emails. So you can send emails to people that haven't given you permission, as long as you have the from address that's real, someone they can email back, a relevant subject. So if you remember those emails that used to come in before that had strange subject lines or just characters or something weird that kind of made you click on it, you can't do that anymore. There must be an unsubscribe option, and the physical address of the sender has to be at the bottom of the email. Kind of a weird one. I'm not sure what that accomplishes, but I guess they want the customer to know that there is actually a business. Nowadays, given so many businesses are based from homes or non-traditional offices, it's a little bit outdated in my opinion, but the law is almost 14, 15 years old now. Good news is most of the email programs are going to help you comply with this, so it doesn't matter, and it probably wouldn't matter because it's it mostly applies to unsolicited emailing, but MailChimp, Constant Contact, all those guys make sure that your emails are in line with the requirement regardless. Now, this last point is really important, which is that you cannot use Constant Contact or MailChimp or any of those to do unsolicited email campaigns. They will prevent you from doing it. I've been stopped. Actually, just a few months ago, I was running an email campaign for a community musical production here in Austin, Texas, and we decided to purchase some lists and see if maybe we could get away with emailing them in Constant Contact. And the crazy thing was we sent out the emails, and we had a very high open rate, something like 20%, with a click rate that was pretty high, but the spam reporting was also high. So too many people, and when I say too many, it's a tiny number that, you know, like I think 1%, and it raises a red flag. But Constant Contact saw that the spam reporting was higher. They put the account on hold. We had to talk to them, and they basically made us turn off all those emails and not use them. So you can't use those programs to send emails to people that you don't have permission to. Now, as an inside kind of thought, you can get away with it if it's a small list, and if it's kind of borderline where, you know, maybe someone gave you their email address and then other contacts and you just throw them on your list. Probably not a big deal if it's one-off, but you can't use, they will catch any sort of purchase list type strategy. Email is not expensive. That is one really good feature about it. The programs themselves, many of them have free plans, and many of them have inexpensive plans once you exceed that amount of either recipients or a number of emails. But the number of emails, that lets you send like 12,000 a month or something therefore within the free plan. So it's a very inexpensive way, just keeping in mind that that's just the cost of having the program. Someone still, or the technology, someone still has to think of the creativity, the creative angles and the messaging, find the images, maybe you have to buy an image. Someone's time has to go into creating that email campaign. Someone has to be around to respond because people will write back to your emails and ask you various questions. And I generally would expect on my team someone to respond within 4 business hours, so about half a day, because you've got a very short window there when the customer is willing to engage with you. And if you miss that window, then the whole thing was kind of pointless. Excuse me. So generally speaking, just to get an email marketing program up and running, pretty inexpensive. So let's talk about a few of the email programs that are out there and some of their pros and cons. This is a small list. There are quite a few more out there that are inexpensive. These are the ones that I have personal experience with, and so I wanted to go through those. Constant Contact and MailChimp are kind of the market leaders. Benchmark is doing pretty well. ActiveCampaign also. They have some features. ActiveCampaign, certainly has some segmentation and features that almost make it more like a CRM solution versus MailChimp and Constant Contact. So, but from my perspective, it comes down to kind of the first two. At least those are my preferred that I like to use. And there's one very big difference between those two. Constant Contact is much easier to use, and it's much easier to create emails. Their drag and drop editor is just very, very easy to use. But their big drawback is they have not completed integrations with platforms like Shopify, Magento, and others. So all that cool automated emailing stuff you can do, you can't do with Constant Contact. It's far more limited. There's some auto-responding, but it's pretty limited. With MailChimp, you can go into Shopify and pretty seamlessly link your account and then create the campaign within Shopify based on events that occur in Shopify, like abandoned cart or initiated payment but didn't check out, or updated payment method but didn't check out. There's a whole variety of steps that can cause those can trigger those emails. So again, if you're an e-commerce brand, I think that it is imperative to be running those types of emails. It's just going to make your e-commerce platform that much more successful and help you close more sales. Let's see what else here. You can see that MailChimp has this free plan, 12,000 emails a month and 2,000 subscribers. Benchmark also has a good free plan and about the same. I think theirs goes up to 14,000 emails and 2,500 subscribers. So if you're just starting out, you can do a lot of things for free, and it's a great way to get familiar and to start working with an email program without having to spend a lot of money or make a big investment. The only thing I would encourage you, though, is don't send an email to dip your toe in the water and then go dark. That is it doesn't look great for the brand, and it gives the brand a feeling that it's not permanent, it's not around to stay. You want to make sure for sure that you're sending emails on a pretty regular basis. Even if it's a campaign-oriented thing, wait until the campaign ends before you stop sending the emails. So that's another, I think that's another important piece of it. It's easier on social media to try and then not follow up, but email is more noticeable when people hear from you and then they don't. And I'm actually guilty of this. I do a little bit of email marketing for my business, but it's a little bit too sporadic, and I don't have the time to necessarily do it often enough. And then, we talked a little bit about content marketing, and I want to say just a few more things about that. So you want to have imagery, you want to have a good call to action, but you also may be wondering at certain times, what other ideas do I have? What's a good subject for an email blast? Well, let's say you have a blog on your website. Every time or when you have a significant new blog post, it's a great idea to send out an email blast announcing and driving people to that blog. And your reporting functionality within the email tool is going to tell you not only how many people opened the email, but how many people clicked on it and which links received the most clicks. All of that is stuff you want to look into and analyze, and it's usually in a very simple dashboard. So it's not hard to interpret that information, but it's definitely something you want to interpret. So that was something that I encourage everyone to do, because you want to test and see how the emails are responding and how they're resonating, and then you'll get a sense for which ones you want to continue with and which ones that you want to tweak or move away from. And the good news is that most of these programs offer pretty good reporting. One other con I'll say relative to MailChimp, the creation tools are hard, the templates aren't as good, but the list management is also, there are things it does that I just can't understand how that even makes sense. For example, if you consolidate two lists, then the original lists are gone. It just becomes one. It's not like a copy-paste. It's more like a cut and paste, which it doesn't tell you. You find that out the hard way. So now you were trying to you had 3 segments, and you wanted to email them all, and you wanted them in one list, and now you've got 3 different, you've lost that insight into which segments they fell into. So now you're ready to go, you're interested in an email program, but you don't have any email addresses to reach out to people. That is definitely a problem. And it's not, given that email address lists can't be bought, it can be a little bit difficult. Far and away, the biggest or the most prevalent method to obtain newsletters, obtain emails, is to have a sign up on your website. And you probably see this from many, many other brands. But if you sign up for the website or sign up on the website, they send you an email for 20% off your first purchase. Or if Southwest Airlines sends you, X amount of miles to your account if you do that. So that's a great way to do it. But then, of course, if people aren't visiting your website, it makes it that much harder to get the signups. Whenever you do events, like the GFAF is a great example, make sure that you have a paper sign-up sheet there, or maybe you even have something you can give away if people give their email address. A lot of times I found at those shows, people are pretty willing because they want to engage with the brand. That's the whole reason they're there. So they'll give you their email address pretty readily. You can come away with quite a few. So I recommend having those sign-up sheets wherever you go. Now Facebook has what's called a lead ad, and you can go in there and you can make it where if they click on your ad, they have to give you some basic information like name and email before they actually go to the ad content. I think it's a great tool. It can be a little bit expensive. In my experience, it was about $1 a lead or $1 an email. So that seems pretty high to me on the one hand. On the other hand, if I wanted to get a program up and running and I wanted 3,000 names, that's $3,000, but that's now the beauty of that is that's going to be 3,000 names that you picked exactly what profile you wanted. You know exactly that they are a target customer of yours, and you may also know that which segments you can put them in. So you may run different lead ad campaigns to get different email lists with different characteristics. So it takes care of that segmentation piece. So if you're committed to an email marketing program, then I think the expense can be worth it. Buying a list, I think we covered that in detail. Be careful. And just be careful in general with unsolicited email or spam emailing. In some businesses, it can generate, there can be value to it. I don't know that it makes sense for food brands. I think that if you were a company that just needed to generate a fair number of leads that your salespeople can go call on, and the product was somewhat of a commodity, then it could make sense because you could send out 50,000 emails, and if you get 500 leads out of that, it's a smashing success if maybe your sales team can close 20% of those or something. So it can work in those scenarios. Generally speaking, a campaign of that type cannot be executed by a small brand by themselves. You usually have to partner with a company that will charge usually some number of pennies per email sent, and you typically have to do a few campaigns before you see a return. So probably not worthwhile to do, but just something to be aware of as an option. And then, of course, there are other ways you can add people to your email list without them specifically opting in, like if they make a purchase. A lot of times it'll ask you if you want to be added to the mailing list, but you don't have to ask. You can assume that making a purchase was a good enough reason, and then they'll unsubscribe if they want to. You can always take that approach. Now, I think this is the last slide, and it's kind of where going back to the very beginning of where social media and email can work together. First and foremost, using email to just reinforce your social media campaigns and vice versa. At that point, you're just taking good content and making sure that it's reaching the most number of people possible. The second point is something people overlook, but it's pretty powerful. If you have a list of email addresses, you can upload those into Facebook, and it'll create what's called a lookalike audience. So they're going to analyze the profiles of all those people, assuming that they have a Facebook account, and figure out their characteristics, and then they're going to give you a list you can market to in Facebook that has the same characteristics of those people. So let's say you had 500 emails that you got from people making purchases on your website. Now you upload those into Facebook, and now you've got up to, it can give you significant multiples of people that have very similar characteristics to the people that made those 500 purchases. Then, of course, you can use Facebook to drive traffic to your site, just to drive general awareness, excuse me, and where, email addresses could be collected. When I worked at SmartFlower, we would have social media ads that would go to our product locator, and while the person was on the product locator, they would get a pop-up for a coupon or a mailing, join the mailing list. So And that's another good one because people that come to you're targeting with Facebook, so you know the people coming to the site are relevant, so it's a good email address to have. And then last but not least, there will be social sharing features in these email programs. So when you send an email blast, you can make sure that a version of it gets posted on your social media. And then there's also links at the bottom where your recipients can share the email on social media. And I believe that some programs like Active Campaign have very good tools for you to track all that. So you know how many people shared, what platforms they shared on, et cetera, et cetera. So again, very powerful capability here. Email and social media should absolutely be integrated. They should not be viewed as a one-on-one or a one-by-one or mutually exclusive, separate capability. It's definitely something that should be used in tandem and can help you reach a lot of your customers and stay top of mind. So that covers all the content that I had. I wanted to open it up for any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Samir. We do have a few minutes for questions, so please submit those now, and I will wait a few minutes to see if any come in and read those out loud. We haven't got any questions yet, so that either means you did a great job, Samir, and no one has any questions, or no one can think of them, or you're having trouble submitting them, so I'll wait a couple more minutes.
And Laura, will this recorded version be available after the fact?
It will, yes. You'll get a follow-up email, and it'll have a link to the recording, and we will also post it on our YouTube channel as well. And if you do think of a question and you'd like to get in touch with Samir, you can email us and we will get your question over to him as well. Oh, we do have one coming in. All right, Samir, we have a question. Any ideas on how to get the creativity flowing for the email campaigns?
Yeah, great question. A couple of ideas on that. Brainstorming, and just old school, getting the right team members in a room, turning off the phones, and just throwing out as many ideas as you can. The other thing is, if you go online, there are plenty of blogs about great email campaigns. So that's another way. I would sign up for a lot of emails and see what other people are doing, especially others that are in your space or adjacent to your space. And then if you're really interested in getting creative and you're willing to spend some money, there are companies out there that focus on creating that type of content. It's something we do, although we have kind of subject matter experts that are really good at that we bring in to do it. So there's just different ways you can go about it, and if you find the right partner, not only can they give you the creative angles, but then they can also help you execute them with the right imagery and text and graphics. So it's really just what you're comfortable spending on it. First and foremost, just work with the team internally, and then pay attention to everything that happens and goes on. So if you're at a GFAF show and someone is gushing about your product, ask them if you can take a quick video of what they liked about it. and then use that video on social media, but also use it in an email campaign. You'll see that there will be things going on every day in the business around you that could be good content. Sometimes I've seen companies do a profile of their team member, a different team member every month. Or maybe they have a team member that has a unique skill set or a unique story. Maybe the founder has a unique story. So it's really just kind of taking a step back and looking at everything you're doing and seeing where those interesting and creative concepts might come from, and certainly pay attention to what everybody else in the market is doing, because you don't want to do anything exactly the same, but you'll get good ideas from what other companies are working on and presenting.
That was a great question. No other questions have come in, so if no one else has anything to ask, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Please look out for our follow-up email. As I mentioned, it will include a recording of today's webinar. We're also starting to plan some webinars for 2018, so stay tuned for more details on those. And on behalf of Samir and the Gluten Free Media Group, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a very happy holiday season.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it.